Well, hello everybody.
Hello, hello.
Welcome to our social media and communications masterclass at Online Open Day. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to chat through this topic with you guys today. So thank you for joining us. Just going to make sure everyone is admitted and can join in. Want to check in the chat where you guys are joining us from. You will hear my accent. I am a New Zealander by birth and proud of it. Anastasia.
Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Can you thumbs up if you can hear me? Yeah, awesome. I'm Anastasia. It's nice to meet you guys. I'm originally from Indonesia, but I've been living in Sydney my whole life. So basically Indonesian Australian. My accent's definitely very Australian.
She grew up in the West.
Yes, that's right. So if anyone's here from Australia, why don't you say hi?
Shout out.
But yeah, it's nice to see you guys. Thank you for joining us. We're really excited that you guys took the time to come to this masterclass.
So excited. We've got people from Colombia, Melbourne, Philippines, Indonesia,
Yay.
Portugal, Belgium,
Wow.
Northern Tablers, Gil something. That sounds like I've been watching Lord of the Rings recently, and that sounds like you live somewhere from Lord of the Rings.
I just started that actually. It's
you
on
did?
Netflix now.
I know. I was so excited.
South Africa, India, Romania. Wow.
Guys, welcome. We're so excited that you're joining us. So excited. And listen, when those borders open up again, literally can't wait to get out of this country and go exploring, as I'm sure everyone is feeling very similar. Hey, before we get into everything, just wanted to, again, thank you for joining us. We don't take it for granted that you guys are coming, and we're really grateful to spend this time with you. If you've got any questions as we go through, Anna and I are here to answer. We're here to get content to you that's going to be helpful. So if you've got questions, just chuck them in the chat as we go, and we'd love just to answer your questions as we move through the content. Straight after this, we've got chapel. So if you want to join us, you can do that. It's going to be great. We've got Maddie Crocker leading us in worship, and Lee's sharing the word. So it's going to be a great time. And so just to frame the session, we're talking about social media and communication. And so for context, I'm the brand and marketing manager of Hillsong College, and Anastasia is our content specialist, who actually looks after our design, our social media, our merchandise, and she is just a wonder to have on team, a woman of many, many talents. So what we thought we might do, if I can, I know not everyone's cameras aren't on, but you can give me a little virtual wave. Do you want to pop your hand up if you're working in social media or doing social media for a church or for yourself, just as an idea of where people are at. Yep, Sarah, Gabriella. Awesome. Yep. Samuel, Misha. That's awesome. And then just a show of hands of people who are just wanting to learn more about how to communicate your message, how to actually do social media for their church or for themselves. Just wanting to get a bit more information.
Yeah, Cheryl.
Awesome. Yeah, great. So again, just to reiterate, you're in the communication team at Hillsong Brussels. Epic. I once flew through the airport of Brussels and had some waffles, so it was great. Excuse me. So again, if you've got questions, please just stop us as we go. We want this to be helpful to you and actually applicable to where you're at and what you're wanting to learn and how you're wanting to apply it to your life. So what we've got prepared, I know that it says communication and social media, and when we looked at how to frame this session, we realized, we know that social media is the tip of the iceberg of all of this planning, research, and how to communicate your message in an idea or an event or something like that. So what we're going to do is just work through a bit of a framework that we undertake when we're building out a campaign or an event or something like that. And then social media is a part of that. So we'll definitely hit social media a little bit further into this session. Hope that's okay with everybody. All right, so what we wanted to take you through, we've got 5 headings, 5, what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, headings.
Headings?
Yeah, 5 headings. 5 points.
5 points. What we really wanted was to be able for you to be able to take away these points and then be able to apply them into where you find yourself within social media or communications or project management of those things. So the first one we're going to start with is planning. And I am a planner. Ask my husband. I like everything planned. And I know that's not the case for everybody, but I think one of the biggest things we've learned about social media specifically is that you have to plan. You've got to be planned for a myriad of reasons that we'll get into. But planning doesn't sound sexy. It doesn't sound fun. But if you want to be successful and you want to have a successful campaign, social media campaign, content creation, you have to plan. And so we're just going to take the next 5 minutes to talk through planning and what you really need to delve into in order to have a good plan to go from for your communication and your social media. So starting with brainstorming. So we were thinking about tailoring this to something specific that we do, but we just weren't sure about where you guys are at specifically. So we've just made it a little bit more generic. But what we found really helpful is brainstorming. And a lesson that I've learned, I've been doing this job for 6 years now, is that it's really easy to keep things close-chested if you have a really awesome idea. You don't want to share with too many people yet because you're still like formulating what you want to express or the content you want to create or the event that you want to do, and you don't want to tell too many people about it. But what I've discovered is that there is so much strength in the collaboration and brainstorming part of planning. There were days where I'm like, back in the day, my first year, I was like, I didn't want to tell anyone what I was planning because I thought it was the best thing ever. And what I've since realized is that the more minds and the creative minds and the different thinking that you get into a room when you're brainstorming this particular idea, the stronger that it's going to be at the end. And so brainstorming is a great place to start. What we like to do is get some post-it notes, put 5 minutes on the clock and just go, let's put all of our ideas out here of how we can communicate this idea. I am going to talk a little bit about what we've done just to put some meat around the practical things. I'm going to just make mention of Hillsong College merchandise. So we started this a few years ago now. Anna and I pretty much started it from the ground up. And so I'm just going to make mention of that just so you can see how we've kind of outworked this process within that, just to give some context. But the brainstorming session, like my fashion is different to Anna. Anna, super fashionable. My husband likes to pick outfits for me, and so that's what I'm working with. And so just from like when we're thinking about this Hillsong College merchandise, we have to get other people in the room to bring their creativity and their ideas, and there is so much strength in that. But I think I've labored on that enough. In that session, you need to know who your target audience is, and you need to know the purpose of your event or your merchandise or your social media platform, your website, whatever it is you're creating. You've got to know who you're trying to reach and for what purpose. What are your goals? What is your KPIs? How are you going to measure your success? And I understand we're talking about we're Hillsong College, we're attached to a church, and I apologize if this is too businessy or whatever, but that's just where we're coming from. That's our context. But I'm hoping that you can use these things to actually outwork things for your church or for yourself. So for us, Hillsong College, our target audience, we've established that. We know what our purpose is when we post, whether it's engagement, whether it's conversion, whether you want people to buy a product or come to an event. You need to be really clear in the brainstorming session so that you can come up with a clear message to communicate. And so if you aren't able to tell me in one sentence what you want to achieve, then your audience is not going to be able to understand what it is that you're trying to communicate. So it's called an elevator pitch. Tell me in a sentence what you want to do, what you want to achieve. And so you can just, it'll come off the tip of your tongue. When someone asks you, what's your event about? We're seeking to do this to achieve this. Awesome. I'm so on board. How do I sign up? Does that make sense? So we're looking at making really clear messaging. And when you come into a brainstorming meeting like that, you've got a clear vision, a clear target market, clear goals, and then your brainstorming, your collaboration out of that, you can think of how you actually want to express that idea through the content, if that makes sense. So collaboration comes into the brainstorming. You've got to invite other brains in. It's easy to hold things to your chest, but it's much stronger in collaboration with others. So for example, with our merchandise, we actually sent out customer surveys to all of our audience saying, hey, would you like a t-shirt that looked like this or a t-shirt that looked like that? And we use that customer feedback and that collaboration with our audience to actually come up with a product that we wanted to create. So sometimes it's something that you personally want to start. And other times it's actually, well, we're creating something for a particular audience. They should be involved in that process. We should be asking them, what's your opinion? Which we'll talk a little bit more about in the social media section. Is this helpful? I hope it is. Let me move on. Okay. So within your planning, you need to also check industry standards for your metrics. So you're setting these goals, right? For example, when we're trying to sell merchandise, we're like, okay, well, what's normal for another college? How do we know if we've been successful? And that's really business speak, but I'm like, if you're going to start something and you want to make an event, or you've got stakeholders that you need to talk to, stakeholders being pastors perhaps, or other people that you're running a business with, or perhaps it's just yourself. It's really good to know at the end of your campaign or your setup that you've been successful, that you've actually achieved something, that you've achieved the goals that you've set. And often what can be really helpful is looking at industry standards and going, okay, well, for us in the education industry, what's the standard metric of how we can measure if we've been successful in this campaign or this event? So I strongly suggest it's not integral to your social media or communication, but it does actually help you know that you've been successful. And if you have other stakeholders, pastors, etc., in the process, it does help you communicate and report back to them that, hey, we spent this much, we put this much effort in, these were our goals, and this is what we achieved. And it just helps in the communication to your stakeholders, which is the next part of the planning process, is your pitch. So after you've done your brainstorming, you've sorted out your goals, your target audience, you've collaborated, you've done some surveys, you've really got this product or this idea or event ready, then that's when you pitch it to stakeholders. So for us, we did our research for merch. Anna used her graphic design wizard skills and put an awesome pitch together, and we gave that to our exec team. And that's when you invite your feedback and your approval process to start, which is nerve-wracking for sure, because you're sharing something that's vulnerable and creative. But again, feedback only makes it stronger. And if you're going to want to be in this social media communications game, you've got to welcome feedback. And I think one of the most difficult things about that is staying unemotional about it. I'm super emotional. And I'm like, this idea is the greatest thing I've ever created, so get on board. But that's often not the case. I don't know why. Do you know what's really funny, actually? When we first started working together, Anna and I have been working together for about 5 years, I loved photography for a little bit. I'm not a photographer. I've got an iPhone 12 that I'm like getting into. Jokes. Anyway, I'm like, Anna, what about this shot? I reckon like this view would be amazing. And she'd just be like, oh yeah, like, yep, sounds good. And I'm like, okay, that's not my strength. And so I invite feedback and we get better and stronger together. And so if you can have people around you that actually help you, it only makes things better. Thanks for the sympathy laugh, AJ. Appreciate that. And so when we take this pitch to our stakeholders, so I say stakeholder, that just means anyone that you're reporting to or anyone that's involved in the process that you need to keep into communication for your event or your social media. I mean, if you're running social media for a church or for a business, no doubt, unless it's your own business, you're going to have someone that you're reporting to. And so you're asking for feedback, for approval on this pitch. Once you've got that approval, you're ready to go. That's when we move into the next phase of execution. One thing, for planning is budget. What's your budget? Do you have budget? Do you need budget? And how do you include that in the pitch to say, well, our event wants to hit 100 people, or we'd like to have 100 people like this social media post, or we'd like to have 100 shares or 100 saves on Instagram, etc. This is our metric. This is how much we think it's going to cost, because this is our return on investment. This is how much engagement, or this is what we think is going to be a result of the money spent. And so coming up with a budget is very important if you need it. If you don't, even better. Your stakeholders will be happy to hear that it's going to cost them nothing. So then we move into execution, which I think Anna, being our content specialist and execution manager, I'm sure I just added that in there to your job description. I would love to hear from you as to taking that planning, that brainstorming, the pitch, and then moving into execution. Could you talk us through that a little bit, please?
Absolutely, Rachel.
Thank you.
So as Rachel has mentioned, so now we move into execution. We're also sitting next to each other.
Hi. Staying COVID safe. So.
Yes. So planning is the biggest part of all of this. I can't move on to execution unless Rachel has done all the planning work, because if I do move on to execution and she hasn't, then I'm constantly going back and forth asking Rachel, hey, what about this? What about, who are we communicating to? How are we communicating? What avenues are we getting the word out on? Are we doing it through socials? Are we doing it through emails? Are we doing it on website? So planning is one of the most important steps that if you get wrong, you probably will have to go back to afterwards.
Yeah.
So we cannot stress the importance of planning.
Are you getting this?
But execution, moving on to execution. So with execution, basically what happens is that after the planning stage is complete, Rachel will hand me everything all the information, all the key information that I need to start executing. And what that means is when we execute, we usually, I guess, go on the social media platform. We send emails, we create landing pages. And so all of that makes up communication for a specific event. If you're doing social media for a church, if you're an artist wanting to put out your music, how do you get the word out? Execution is a massive part of it. With execution comes content creation. So what that means is obviously it's a lot of graphic design. It can include video. It can include different kinds of art forms that you want to use to get your word out. And saying that as well, also knowing what pieces of content work on what platforms is so important. Mm-hmm. So for Instagram, I'm not going to create a 17-minute video for our Instagram. If I'm going to create a 17-minute video, I'm going to do that for YouTube, because YouTube is the video platform. And so you kind of also need to know what platforms are used and why, and where your audience is and why, in terms of the execution. And so that's a really important part, I guess, of execution. If you guys have any more questions about execution that you want to type in, let me know. But basically,
it's kind of the fun part.
Yeah, that is. I love it. I love the execution part. It's so much fun. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
So that's when you're planning your shoots.
Yep.
So if you need to create, if you need some photographs for static images, that's when you're hiring a studio or getting some pull-up, what do you call them?
Yeah. Pull-up banners.
But what do you call the photography?
Oh, the photography backdrops.
Backdrops, thank you. That's when you're getting a photographer in, you're looking at the aesthetic that's going to express the message or advertise the event or show the music that you're wanting people to understand, or your brand message. This is where your messaging comes to life, because if you're posting on social media, obviously carousels are becoming more and more popular. But really you've got 1 or 2 pictures to capture someone's attention. And this is when that comes into play. So you've done your planning, you know your goals, your target audience, your budget for the shoot. And this is when you go, all of this needs to fit into this image. How am I representing and communicating to my audience what I want, that elevator pitch, that this event is for you because of this, you're going to get this out of it, sign up. Do you know what I mean? And so, and it's fun. I think if you've done the brainstorming collaboration really well, then you can just enjoy the content creation and the execution, getting people in to make a short video, making a TikTok, coming up with a creative way to express and communicate your ideas to capture the attention of your target audience, which is what all of us are trying to do, is cut through the noise of social media to get in front of the people that we're actually trying to reach, to make a difference in their lives, we hope, with what we're trying to sell or what we're trying to get into their hands, be that music or art or whatever that may be. I hope that makes sense. So after we've created our content, you go through the same process of feedback and stakeholder management. And I will probably harp on this for a little bit, because that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my particular role, is the importance of reporting up and reporting out. So if you've got stakeholders that you're communicating with, after you've done the shoot, send them one of the images, say, this is what we've created today, just check it out. And so taking them on the journey, as opposed to waiting until all of this has happened before you feedback, doesn't give you and your team enough time to actually make changes that are necessary before you have to perhaps get the content out, if that makes sense. So keeping people in the loop constantly, over communicating is better than under communicating. And I know for myself, when my team send me messages saying, hey, check out these images we got today, or this is where this is up to, so I don't have to chase that up. That is one thing that you can do to help your stakeholders or your managers that I'm sure they'd be really appreciative of. Just send them a quick message. Hey, we got up to this, really happy with how this is looking. And then it's not a surprise when they get to the end, you're like, hey, we've built this whole campaign. Do you love it? And they're like, oh, well, I'd changed this, and this. And then you've got to go back to the planning stage, if that makes sense. So at every stage, so we've got planning so far, we've got execution. Every stage, keep your stakeholders involved and report up. Let them know what you're doing, how you're going, and that's going to make the whole communication, social media, project management a lot smoother. So then after we've done that, we go into testing. So we've got planning, execution, and then testing. And testing is a really interesting word to say with my New Zealand accent, testing. And so this is important. We've learned many a lesson from this and from the lack of testing. So with social media, like Instagram, for example, and Facebook, there's not a lot of testing you can do. Like you post it and then you debrief how it went. That's not the only platform for communication of something. We've got emails. So direct emailing, if you've got a database or you've got a website, or if you're selling a product, or you've got signups for an event, you need to test the end-to-end customer journey. So you need to test from signups to the email they receive after they've signed up. So this is exactly what for Online Open Day you will have received. So you received an email 24 hours in advance, and then an email 2 hours in advance saying, hey, Online Open Days in 2 hours. And so we've tested that entire journey end to end, even to the email you'll receive after this, just letting you behind the curtain, thanking you for joining. And that's the entire end-to-end process that you have to test, because there's so many contingencies that if you don't get right, will really mess up the communication of what you're trying to get across. And so testing is incredibly important, even if you're selling something. So for merchandise, we had to test on our website that you could, or the Hillsong store, that you could purchase it. Like you need to send through a a trial $2 purchase to make sure that your actual tools or your plugins on your website are working. And I mean, it sounds basic, but it's mucked us up a few times when we haven't tested properly. And that's when we make our mistakes, when we don't follow a checklist of things that need to happen before we can go live with social media campaign or a project, if that makes sense. I keep saying if that makes sense, sorry. And so testing is important. Are there any questions around testing? I feel like it's kind of self-explanatory. It just sets you up for a win, to be honest. You can feel confident when you launch whatever it is that you're launching, that the whole customer end-to-end process is going to run smoothly. People are going to have a great customer experience, which is going to build brand loyalty and equity with your brand. And at the end of the day, people will communicate to their friends, I had an awesome experience at this event, or I downloaded this music, or I listened to this on Spotify. I was able to go to their website from Spotify. I was able to click through and see everything, and it was just easy. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I try and teach people is like, if it doesn't work for you, then it's not going to work for your customer. So if you go on a website that takes 5 seconds to load, you're going to click off. And don't expect that your customers are going to be any different just because you think that your event's special or that your social media is the best thing you've ever seen. Like, use yourself as a yardstick. If it doesn't work for you, don't expect that your customer is going to work for them either. It might work for your mum because she wants to know what you're doing. But like, I think we can often think that people will make, that people will be okay if things don't work smoothly, but I'm like, they won't. If you go to like, I don't know, Apple, and their customer service was terrible, you'd let them know about it. And it doesn't matter that they're Apple, like, you expect a great customer service wherever you go. And so taking that on board, making sure it's excellent for your customers or your church or whoever it is, it's just good practice. So then we move on to our advertising plan. So we've got our brainstorm, our pitch, we've executed, we've made our content, we've tested various elements in it, and then we have to have a plan for launch. So we've got to know, when are we posting? I think we've done this actually sometimes, of like, we've done all of this, and we've definitely made this mistake too. We get to the day that we're going live, and we're like, oh, what time are we posting? Like, we haven't even like done basics like that, which is why we're trying to teach. Yep. That you've got to have an advertising plan. So you've done all this background work to communicate this event, to get your social media ready to launch what it is that you'd like to launch. And then you've got to know what platforms and when and who to that you're going to launch. So just some basics. You've got your emails ready to send. You've edited your copy. You know that they're either going to go out at like 5 p.m. based on the people you're trying to reach. So if you're in Sydney, Australia, there are certain optimal times that we'd send out emails to Australia that would differ to when we're sending emails out to Colombia or to the UK or to the USA or to South Africa or to Tanzania or to India or to wherever it may be. There are optimal times that will reach your audience that you need to do a little bit of research about, so that when they wake up in the morning, the email is waiting for them in their inbox. If it's email marketing, if it's website, have you published it? Is it live? Can people go on it, or is it still in its review stage? Digital advertising, if you're doing Facebook, Instagram, Google advertising, is that all set up? Have you got your messaging? Have you got your copy? Have you got your ads ready to go to your target audiences? Digital advertising is an hour or two or a few weeks in itself, so we're not going to hit digital advertising too much. But I would encourage you, digital advertising seems to be like, sometimes it can seem way out of people's grasp. But for example, like, I started using something like, everyone started a side hustle in COVID, right? And I just put ads, like $25 into an ad that Instagram did for me. And it's so doable. You don't have to be a digital specialist to be able to run small ads for an event or for your business. And it just helps broaden the reach. So you don't have to be a Google guru to be able to do that. You can actually start small and then learn incrementally as you go. So I would encourage you just to play around with that. It doesn't have to be a huge amount of money, but it just gives you experience in that part of things. And obviously Google and Facebook and Instagram have so much free training that you can do on digital advertising that I would definitely suggest that you go and check out. It's just helpful to know. Are you printing anything? Do you have any leaflets that need to go out at church? Are you printing posters to put up around your city or in your church? Or are you printing a brochure to let people know? Or is there a paper sign up? Is the printing done? Have you got the timeline? Is everything done, ready to go for the go live date? And then do you want a soft launch or you just want to launch everything at once? So these are some of the things you need to think about with your advertising plan. And then obviously social media. And so this is where we want to get into a little bit more of the detail around social media. Social media is wild. It is wild. And often takes so much more work than you'd expect. I know that when we both started in this role, okay, do you want to hear something really funny and makes me sound so old? I remember like years ago when Instagram stories started, but Snapchat was like big back then. And did I say it to you? Or maybe to one of our other team members, I was like, Instagram stories will never take off.
You said that to me.
Yeah, it's like, it's just Snapchat and they're trying, like Instagram are just trying to be Snapchat. And then Nick Mena, obviously, Instagram stories are incredibly successful. And Instagram has just been adding different elements to the social platform ever since. You've got Reels, you've got IGTV, etc. So Anna, I'm going to maybe ask you a few questions about social media, given that that's what you look after. Can you talk about, this may also encompass some of the planning, execution, testing, advertising all together, but we just thought this was a good place to talk about social media a little bit more. So can you talk about content planning for social media? Feel free to use us as an example or whatever you'd like, just to give context.
Yeah. Okay, content planning. So I guess it also depends the type of content you're putting out and if you're working for yourself or if you're working for a particular organization. Obviously, I manage the social media of Hillsong College. So my content plan will also align to all the events that college has. So for example, Wednesdays we have chapel, a highlight of the week, and we also have chapel straight after this. Yeah, on Wednesdays we have chapel, and so we like to let people know about it. We could post an Instagram story, and we can also post some highlights on Wednesday after it's finished. So a lot of my content plan lines up to the college events that happen throughout the week. On top of that, we also need to think about who we are, I guess, talking to and who our audience is. So on our particular audience, we have alumni, we have our current students, we have our future students, we also have parents of alumni and friends of friends who are watching us and our channel. And not only that, they're all coming from international, they're coming
global
globally.
Stage.
Yeah, a global stage. So the type, how we communicate is going to be important, so that multiple people of different backgrounds can understand what we're saying. So it's a universal language. So we make sure that when we're planning our captions, we make sure that it's a universal language so that everyone can understand. I guess if you're, if you're in the States and if your church is in the States, and it's okay to obviously use American spelling, etc.
I would also say on that, the universal language for sure. And then it's also really important to figure out your voice.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So we say that our tone is light. We keep it light. We keep it professional. We keep it clear. And so that's how we like to do our captions. I know, for example, there's another, I'm just going to use it as an example because it's come to my head, but there's a local cafe that that's around here, around the college campus. And basically their social media, they're very colloquial. They're very Australian. They know their target market. They're very casual, and that's their tone. Mm-hmm. So when you go onto someone's social media, you like to know that you are actually communicating with the person, especially if it's a brand. And whether it's a brand, especially if it's a brand, you need to have a brand voice. So how are you going to communicate on your social media? And this will also help all the copy that you have through your emails, through website, etc. And so that's a massive part of content planning. Like I mentioned before, content planning, you've got to know what types of content you want to create and where you're going to distribute that. So we can also, do blogs. Blogs is a type of content. If we want to put out informative information, if we need people to know something about our courses or something like that, then we will do a blog. We can post it on Hillsong Collected for people to read. Or course guides, especially. So if we're making course guides so that you guys know about a little bit more about our courses in depth, we'll make a PDF document and we'll put it on our website, because that's the appropriate channel to distribute that piece of communication. And so all of that needs to be thought about, and all of the different channels. That, I would say, that's the biggest thing about content planning.
Can you talk about Instagram?
Yeah.
Because as I just mentioned, probably, I'm not sure if everyone is running communication and social media at the level that we are from a Hillsong College perspective. But I know a challenge for you this year has been the amount of, as I was just saying earlier, avenues in which Instagram have now added to communicate just on one social platform. And there's content that needs to be created that talks to Reels, that talks to stories, that talks to IGTV, that talks to feed, posting on your feed. Because I assume, I shouldn't assume, but I feel like if we're, maybe the better question is, how do you manage if you're promoting something for your church or an event or music? What's the best way to content plan for a week on Instagram for all of those things? If you can.
Well,
I know it's a lot of work.
Instagram is a beast in itself. And Rachel noticed, and I did mention, because on Instagram there are so many different types of channels on one platform. And so you've got your Instagram feed, you've got Instagram advertising, you've got IGTV, you've got Reels, you can do filters now. It can be all a little bit overwhelming. And so how I like to approach it is with Instagram advertising, that's where we like to put all our promotional material. That's where we like to put all our advertising. So you probably would have seen our online open day advertising on our social media feed, but behind the scenes, you probably also may have been targeted through an Instagram ad that our digital marketing specialists implemented. And that's where other people need to come on board and help with the social media process as well. And so for IGTV, that's very video heavy. And it's also, they don't let you upload videos less than a minute. So they want content, they want proper content.
So that would be a good place perhaps to talk about your product or your event. And an Instagram story might be like the elevator pitch. So join us here on this day. This is for anyone wanting to experience blah, 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 blah. See you there. Swipe up. And IGTV would be to talk, this is the vision. This is the heart behind this. This is why we want you to be here. You can expand your elevator pitch on IGTV, right?
Totally.
What would you do for feed?
For feed, we just let people know. We would remind people. We would do the announcement post on our feed so people can share it. People can save it for the details. But in an ideal world, let's talk online open day campaign planning. An ideal world, this is what would have been awesome to do. So we did the announcement post on our feed. We shared on IG stories as well, so people could swipe up.
Love a good swipe up. It's so easy.
Basically.
I love it.
We didn't do this for this year, but we've got the ideas for next. We'll just strap for time. But for IGTV, we could have posted maybe a few video testimonies of some current students who've come because of online open day in the past. For TikTok, we could have done a funny TikTok about what you're going to experience at online open day, a quick 15-second short video on what we could do there. For a filter, we could have created a filter for all you guys so that you can, I don't know, take a selfie.
I went to online open day.
Something like that. And so all of that in terms of a campaign you can do that for every single campaign. You can honestly do that for anything, any word of mouth, or I mean, any communication that you want to get out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that cover it?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think it also can sound quite overwhelming. And so just start with what you've got. If you have an iPhone you can take pictures with, you can also use free apps on your phone to do any kind of like design work. Or if you know someone that you can ask, get some help. And you don't have to do all of this at one time. Like you just start, you plan, you make a plan that works for you with your time, with your money, with what you want to achieve, and then you just start there. If you're working in a team already, then lucky. Then you're lucky, because it's content creation, while really fun, takes a long time. And so just start where you're at. Like you don't have to be a social media specialist, but there's so many resources and things you can learn from as well. But it also, experience is amazing, and the longer you're in it, the more you actually come to understand the audience and who you're talking to and how to talk to them. And I think that's a really, really important thing that and I don't know if you want to talk about social listening. And actually, Anna also just put in some great free apps that you can use just to get started with social media. But why is knowing your audience important?
Yeah. Well, because if you don't know your audience and you don't know what kind of content to create, you don't know what they're going to engage with. And I guess an example of this that we found throughout the years of managing our social media is one thing that we trialed this year and we have implemented this year has been our educational carousels.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys have seen on our social media, but every week we aim to post something informative to help you guys in just your Christian walk. And so usually that could be something biblical, like a biblical fact. That could be something about mental health that we recently posted something about how to write theologically sound songs, because we know that a lot of you guys are songwriters and musicians that follow us. So knowing your audience, it helps to know what content you're going to create. And we have done that by social listening, by knowing what content people are engaging with. And currently our educational carousels are the most engaged with pieces of content that we post. So that just shows to me that the people seeing this are interested. They want to know they want to know what to learn. I mean, they want to learn something. They want to know a biblical fact. They want to, all of that kind of stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think it's also, it's important to know your lane as well, because you see there's so many people doing so many different things on social media. Some people are super funny and their TikToks are hilarious and that's their lane. Some people are influencers and they love selfies and that's their lane. Other people are social activism accounts and they kill it at social justice and that's their lane. And I'm not saying you can't diversify into other lanes, but when we came down to it and looking at our social media strategy is what's our lane? We're actually awesome with education. That's what we provide, that's what we believe in, and that's what the people around us, our lecturers, our professors, our trainers, they're highly skilled in it. We've got doctors here who have studied for years, who love sharing knowledge. And so what we actually discussed was, what's our lane? What do we want people to understand when they come to our platform? We actually want them to be educated, and not just about the courses that we offer. We actually want to offer content that's going to help people in their everyday life and add value to people's Christian walks. And so that's the lane that we were like, this is what we want to focus on. When people come to our Instagram, our Facebook, we want people to leave educated and also having been given something of value from our Instagram. And so that's the kind of lane that we, why is it called a lane? That's just a terminology, stay in your lane. It is not particularly a lane. I guess it's just an area or an area that you specialize in. So if Adidas started making music, I'd be like, but you're a you do sporting things. Do you know what I mean? Like sportswear is their lane, if that makes sense. And so that's it, you can easily get into the whole comparison thing, or like, oh, should I be doing TikToks? Maybe, but if you're not a particularly quirky or funny person, figure out how you can use TikTok to serve your overall vision and purpose, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And just finishing up with the last heading is debrief. And it's not, none of these things are particularly sexy, to be honest, but they're helpful. If you don't debrief a campaign or a project or a social media post, you'll never know how it went, or if you were successful, or if there's something you could do better. And again, that comes back to being open and not emotional about feedback and welcoming of people's opinions. And not that you have to take on everything that's said, you definitely don't, but there is strength in being able to take on constructive and positive feedback. And so when you debrief, welcome those people who are part of the brainstorming session, welcome feedback from your team, welcome feedback from your stakeholders, and also welcome feedback from your audience. So surveys, questionnaires are a fantastic way to understand if what you put on or what you released was actually what they wanted, and they actually received what they wanted. So for example, we've got an online open day survey that will be emailed out to everyone in this Zoom and everyone who's attended across the day, because we value feedback and we value all of you, and we want to know that what we've actually put on for you today has been of value, and it has actually given you what you need when it comes to making a decision about attending Hillsong College, if this is something that is, or a place that you'd actually like to come and learn from. And so be it an event, as I said, understanding if your customer has got something of value, or perhaps it wasn't actually what they wanted, and hearing feedback from your customer helps you refine what you do next time. And it's really, really important to hear from them. And it's important to hear from your team. Hey, what can we do better next time? As Anna was saying, there's already things that we've made note of for social media that we can do better for our next online open day. And I think it's something to not allow yourself to be affected or emotional about, but actually like, oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad there's somewhere we can improve. Because it just means we get better as a team. So debriefing, incredibly important part of social media, because it also goes, have we hit our goals, our KPIs? Did we hit our budget? What was our return on investment? Did we get 100 signups that we actually wanted? Or did I get 1,000 streams of that song that I released? Did I achieve what I wanted to? And then I can know if I've been successful or not. And if not, okay, what can I do better next time? Who can I collaborate with, etc. So I hope that's helpful. We'd love to just spend the last 5 minutes just opening it up for questions. And if you have any, we're here to answer anything. If you just want to pop them in the chat and we can just respond to you. If you don't, that's fine, but we're just going to let you guys ask any questions if you have them.
Well done.
I hope that's been helpful, guys. As I said, let us know if you have any questions. We're here to answer. In the meantime, while you perhaps type your questions out, we have chapel coming up at 11. Thanks, Lydia. And then after that, we have some awesome sessions this afternoon. Let me just pull up our schedule. But we have marriage and family, which is, I actually didn't take because I wasn't in that particular stream, but all of our students love marriage and family. It's one of their favorite subjects. I know Anna was one of your favorite subjects at college. You've got how to read the Bible with Duncan. He's our academic dean. We love this man, and he is plethora of wisdom. He's working on his PhD currently while also being the academic dean of college. So if you want to learn how to read your Bible better, then I'm hosting a session actually with Amanda Ferguson and Hannah Hobbs from Hillsong Worship about how to write theologically sound songs for congregations. And then we've got a session on how to maintain a healthy mindset in a digital age with one of our psychologists here at Hillsong College. So he's a trained professional, and a really interesting topic, especially given what we've discussed. How do you keep a healthy mindset when there's just so much noise on social media? And it's a really important thing for all of us to be
Yep.
to be considering. So if there are no questions, we'd love to thank you for coming. If you do have any questions about attending Hillsong College, we'd love you to get in contact with us. You can express your interest if you've got any further questions about studying with us, or if you'd like to book a call with one of our recruitment team, you can do that. We're always here to chat, to talk through what your study options are, whether it's online or in person. We're here for it. So thank you for your time. Again, we don't take it for granted that you come and join us. We hope that's been helpful. You got your planning, your execution, your testing, your advertising plan, and then your debrief. And we hope that whatever you're applying that to in your own life, that really helps set it up for a win, and that whatever you're doing, you're helping others. You're able to share some love, some hope in our world. And we hope to see you really soon.